Okay, folks, people are always asking me, why are these power bills going up so much? Well, first of all, I'm going to remind you again, energy equals money and it's your money. A lot of people don't know the world's energy crisis story, and let's take a second to tell you. With over 5% of the world's populations, Americans consume 26% of the world's energy. So let's take a look at this. There's 7 billion people on the planet. There's about 340 million Americans. So we're only about 5% of the world's population, but we're using 26% of the world's energy. Now, if you were all those other countries, how long would you let us get away with that? In the past, oil would yield 20 units of energy for every unit of energy spent to find, extract, and refine it. So what that means is, for every $1 it cost, they were making $20 profit. As a matter of fact, prior to this, when oil first came out, it was 1 to 100. Okay, that's why so many people got wealthy when oil first came out. Now it's down to 8 to 1. That means every time you invest $1, you get 8, which is still really good. But in the very near future, oil will only net 1 unit of energy for every 1 unit of energy spent to refine and recover it. So what that means is kind of like if you went to work and you made $100, but it cost you $100 to go to work, would you go?
No.
That's why a lot of people are unemployed. It just doesn't pay them to go to work. Dr. M. Keem Hubbard's peak oil theory is defined as the point at which half of the world's available fossil fuels have been consumed. Dr. Hubbard projected oil would peak worldwide in 2010. He missed it by 6 months. The U.S. peaked in 1970. Americans soon found themselves held hostage by OPEC-led oil embargo. OPEC stands for oil-producing exporting countries. What happened was back in the 1970s, 78 in there, I'm sure you guys remember the gas lines. If you didn't have an odd plate, you could buy on this day. If you had an even plate, you could buy this day. So basically, you could only buy gas every other day. I can remember several times running out of gas in line with my parents in the car. God bless you, sir. Okay, so what's happened is we don't produce enough in our country to provide ourselves in our country. Okay, and we're running out. The pessimists say that we're going to run out in 2050. The pessimists say we're going to run out in 2030. The optimists say we're going to run out in 2050. But I think you can agree with us. You agree with me? We're running out. Okay. There are only 11 oil-producing nations left in the world. There was 85 before that in the world. And demand for oil worldwide is higher now than ever. Subsequently, the number of oil-producing nations will dwindle from 11 to 10 to 9 to pretty soon to be one exporter remaining. If you were that one person remaining, what would you charge? Supply and demand, right? Okay, the last 3 remaining nations to have oil for export are as follows. Iran, I don't think I need to say anything more about that. Iraq, I don't think I need to say anything more about that. Saudi Arabia said they are our friends, but 85% of the terrorists that took down the Twin Towers were from Saudi Arabia. Okay? Now, our growing demand for energy is fed by foreign oil. The U.S. currently imports over 10 million barrels of oil each day. In exchange, we export billions of dollars overseas. So what happens? We send over barrels of money. They send back barrels of oil. They buy bombs and bullets. We buy SUVs. Well, it doesn't make any sense. Me and you, when we pull up to the pump, we pay, I think the average last time I checked was $3.86. Okay? We pay that $3.86. We're pretty upset about it, right? I don't know, I am. Are you folks? Yeah. Okay. Well, let's think about this. China, $12 to $14 for a gallon of gas. England, $7 to $9. Some places even 10 in England for a gallon of gas. The European Union as a whole is paying $7 for a gallon of gas. The only place that sells gas cheaper enough is Venezuela, because their government subsidizes it. But let's think about this for a second. If China's 12 to 14, England's 7 to 10, European Union 7, and we're less than $4, are we special? No. What's happened is we've been subsidizing it, because if you woke up tomorrow and your gas bill, the gas pump was like $8 a gallon or $9 a gallon, and your power bill at your house was equal to half your mortgage payment, there'd be anarchy. People would be pretty upset, right? So they're slowly trying to tell us things. Change your light bulbs. Don't use energy while using light bulbs. They told you to do it, you didn't do it, so they made it a law. Put insulation in your house. Told you to do it, you didn't do it, so guess what? They made it a law. What do you think cash for clunkers was all about? Okay. They even had cash for appliances, inefficient energy appliances. If you would have traded them in last year, they were paying half of it. Very rarely people knew about that, but the government did have it for a little while. You know, folks, here's what most people understand. Almost 90% of our energy comes from burning fossil fuels. Fuel prices have soared to levels never seen before in history. Only 7% of our energy comes from solar, wind, and geothermal. The sun's free, okay? 84% of our energy is coming from fossil fuels. 9% from nuclear. You know what slowed down now was Chernobyl. And, you know, I don't know about you, but I don't want a nuclear plant in my backyard. Okay, but 7% are renewable. Germany now produces over 50% of their energy from renewable energy sources. You know, folks, the sun, in 1 hour's time, produces enough energy to power the planet for a year. And it's free. Our environment has suffered dramatically from the extensive use of fossil fuels. The evidence is in damages everywhere. You know, there's not a day that doesn't go by that you don't hear something on TV, radio, or newspaper about harming the environment. Future generations are counting us to act responsible with the earth which we inherit tomorrow. Well, you know, me and you can sit here and say we don't care about each other, but the number one most important thing I know you care about is your children and their children. Okay, so it's our responsibility. You know, Israel went solar back in 1961. Israel passed a law to require every home in Israel to switch to solar water heating, and it began gaining its energy independence. Well, it's pretty obvious why they had to do it. Everybody around hates them. They're the ones with oil, so they pretty much were forced to do it. But it's a law there. You want to talk about laws? Hawaii passed the same law. Hawaii has become the first state to require solar water heaters in new homes. The bill was signed into law by Governor Lena Lingle, a Republican. It requires energy-saving systems in homes starting 2010. The new law prohibits issuing building permits for single-family homes that do not have solar water heaters. It is a law in Hawaii. Guess who else passed the law? California. Got to have solar water heater. Right down the road, a couple, 2-3 hours, Parkland, Florida, passed the law. The handwriting's on the wall. I mean, let me ask you a question. When they make it a law, do you think the prices for solar systems are going to go up or down? Yeah, right. Okay. Well, you know, folks, let's take a look at what's physically happening in your house. Well, in Florida, in 2010, the rates went up 11%. In 2011, 17, 2012, 25, 2013, 30. What do you think is going to go up next year?
More than 30.
What do you think?
15%.
Okay. So do you think it's going to be at 35, 40? What do you think it's going to go up?
35 or 40.
Okay, I have to agree with you.
Look at that.
I have to agree with you. So, folks, if I was to show you a chart based on a 15% annual increase for the next 10 years, just 15% a year, based on what's happened in past history, that would be a pretty conservative figure, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I do have a chart here, and the way you read this chart, don't let it intimidate you. It's pretty easy to read. These are your current power bills up here. For a person that had a $100 bill, 125, 150s, 175, and so on. Okay. This is your 15% annual increase over a 10-year period of time. Now, you folks' bill was $250, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, if I took $250 times 12 months, that comes up to $3,000. If I have 15% on that, that comes up to $3,450. If I have 15% on top of that, it comes to $3,967. If I have 15% of that, it comes out to $4,562. Let's go ahead and fast forward here 10 years. So in a 10-year period of time, you're going to spend $60,911. That's a brand new 5 Series BMW. Maybe a nice used 7 Series.
That's how much my mortgage is a year.
The 60,000?
No, the 10,000.
Yeah, that's 10 years from now. It should be. Okay, so you got $60,911, folks. If you were just to save 30% of that figure, you would have $18,273 to spend on something else. You know, if Americans would just save 30% in all of our homes, we would never need another drop of foreign oil for 100 years. Folks, let me ask you a question. If you had $18,273 that you didn't have to send to your power company, what would you spend that money on?
Maybe college for the children.
Okay, that's right.
What'd you say?
That's so cool. But
Yeah.
Pool.
It's
Well,
always
it's
funny.
college.
The husband, and the wife is, usually college or something like that, and the husbands want to go to Paris or a pool or a new bass boat. You can think of a lot of things to do besides send it to the power company, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this question: if you knew 10 years ago what you now know now, that you invested, let's just say $10,000 into energy-saving products, okay, and you saw a rate of return of $18,000, would you have done it?
Yes.
Would you have saw it as a good investment?
Yes.
Okay, I'd have to agree with you. But folks, people are always asking me, well, gosh, how does that $250 break down? I mean, where does it go? Well, this comes from the Florida State Energy Office. It doesn't come from me or my company. They say that 30% of your bill alone is that water heater, wasting the water heater. I'm sure you folks would agree with that. Okay? The appliances are 8%. Your lighting is 7%. Your cooking's 5%. Now, in my house, it's probably a little bit more than that. Don't make fun of me now. Okay? And your AC and your heating is 50% of that total bill. Okay? So let me ask you a question, folks. Are you more concerned about the 30% that's being wasted on that water heater? Are you more concerned about the 50% that's being wasted on the AC or heating? Or are you more concerned about both?
I'm concerned about both, but
I'm more concerned about the water heater. You show me at 170 hours a week, I'm only using it 10 or 12 hours. I mean, that's.
For purposes of trading, remember, I need to do a gold package.
Okay, but they're both important.
they're both important.
All right, well, I have to agree with you, folks. Let's go over the problem then, and then we'll get into the solution. The problem is lack of insulation, right? Lack of proper insulation causes us to waste billions of dollars on energy every year. Over time, traditional insulation deteriorates, allowing energy to exit and enter your home. Like I said, most people don't know this, but 42% of your heat loss and gain is coming right through the attic. These people sell these windows out there, and I think windows and doors are great. I think they're fantastic. But it's only 12% of your heat loss and gain. The big problem is right up here. As a matter of fact, you can see it better in this picture over here. This was in the front page of National Geographic. This was shot in the wintertime, by the way. They had the heater on. Where's the most heat in that house?
Yeah,
The reason why
Yeah.
is because that radiant heat is always searching for the coldest place. So if you don't have good insulation up there, and you don't have a radiant barrier, it's going to go straight up in the attic. So let's go ahead and take a second and explain that to you. In the summertime, attic temperatures can get over 150 degrees, which increase your energy cost by 30%. That's why I said if people just cut their bills by 30%, we never need to drop of foreign oil. But you got to understand this before we go any further. There's 3 different types of heats. There's convection, there's conduction, and there's radiant. Okay? Convection, the easiest way to explain that is kind of like an oven. Okay? Conduction is taking something cold or hot and touching something that is cold or hot. So if I had a glass of ice right now, or ice water, and I touched your arm, I just conducted that cold to your arm. Or if I had a match and I touched your arm with it, I'd be conducting that heat to your arm because your arm's colder. Radiant heat is totally different. Radiant heat is searching for the coldest place. Today we know that radiation is the single most significant source of heat and loss gain in your home because radiant heat is searching for the coldest place. So the easiest way to explain that to you is on a piece of paper here. Okay? What I'm going to do is I'm not Van Gogh or Picasso, but I'm going to give it my best shot. Okay, this is your house. Okay? Oops. This is your insulation up there. Alright, now, for sake of argument, the sun comes up in the west about 7 a.m. Okay? And it sets in the east. Okay? So the way around, right? Sun comes up in the east.
Sits in the
Yeah, I'm
west.
sorry. Sun comes up in the east in China, and it sets in the west in California. Depending on what time of year, usually it comes up around 7 a.m., goes down about 7 p.m. Now, the sun arches across the sky like this. What a lot of people don't understand is in the summertime, the reason why it's hotter is the sun is directly overhead, so it's closer to Earth. In the fall, winter, and spring, it goes across the sky like this, so it's further from the Earth, so it doesn't get as hot. but your biggest time of day for straight sunlight is at 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I don't know about you, but that's why my mom would put lotion on me when I go out and play. All right? So, I think you said you like to keep the house at 78 degrees in the summertime, right? And 68 degrees in the wintertime, correct? Okay. Now, here's what happens. The house starts getting heated up, heated up, heated up. Between 7 and 10, that air conditioner might run once or twice an hour. Between 10 and 2, it might run 3 to 4 times an hour. Between 2 and 4, it might be running 5 to 6 times an hour. Well, here's what's funny. Between 4 and 8 p.m., it almost never stops. And here's the reason why, folks. Insulation, by its terminology, gets to a point where it can only hold so much. Now, you used to have probably 14 inches up here. I'm sure when the house was built, it was suggested to put in R30. It's down to 3 inches now, so it's even worse. The reason why that happens is because it heated and cooled, heated and cooled, heated and cooled. Let's say you built it up to 14 inches again, or you should build it up to 17.4, which is the now required R38. Now, here's the reason why that air conditioner is running all during the day, and by this time it just almost never stops. Let's just say that this phone I have in my hand is those sponges that you see that are yellow on one side and the green on the other side. Okay, you know what sponges I'm talking about? Okay, it's completely dried out. And I take it, go over to your faucet, I turn on the faucet, and I put this sponge underneath that faucet. What's going to happen to the sponge?
It's gonna rise.
Okay, it's going to fill with water.
Fill with water.
Correct. Once it's completely full of water, what's going to happen to the excess water if I keep letting it run? It's going to run off my hands, it's going to spill over, correct? Okay, so that means it can only hold so much. Insulation's the same thing. It can only hold so much. So what happens is it starts beating on this roof, right? Back in the 1950s, houses were built flat roofs. And the reason why, it didn't really matter. Power wasn't that expensive back in the 1950s. But obviously, if I've got a flat roof, and I got nothing between my roof and my house, once that roof heats up, that heat's going to go straight in the house. So some engineers said, hey, let's pop these roofs up like this, and that way we have a place to hold that heat for a while. So it works pretty good over here. It's holding that heat, right? Well, it gets up to 150 degrees. Some other engineers said, you know what? Let's put some insulation up there. So when this thing gets filled up with heat, it doesn't directly go in the house. So it held it back till about 4 o'clock. Well, guess what? You're at work till when? 5 o'clock. So by the time you get home, this is up to 150, the insulation's given up, and radiant heat only has one place to go, down. It's 90 degrees outside. It's 150 in your attic. It's 78 degrees in your house. Radiant heat is searching for that coldest place. Well, it can't go that way, it's 90. It has to go this way. Easiest way to explain it to you, there's a thing up there called the sun, right? There's another planet next to the sun called what?
Mercury, Venus.
Mercury. Okay, next planet is Venus. Next planet is third rock from the sun. Okay, that's what we call us. We were in the Goldilocks zone. If we were any closer to something, we'd burn up. Any further, we'd freeze. Okay. Now, me and you were taught as kids that heat does what?
Rises.
Some type of heat rises. Convection heat rises. Okay, but radiant heat is searching for its coldest place. The sun throws off radiant heat. If it was convection, what would happen? It would just go up. How would the heat ever get to the earth? It's because it's radiant heat, and radiant heat is searching for the coldest place. Okay? Same thing happens in here. So as a matter of fact, if I take my thermal gun and I point it to the bottom of your wall, your outside wall over there, it's reading 70 degrees. Okay? If I point it up there, it's reading 80. Okay? So it's hotter up there. Do you have the heater on right now?
No.
No. You have the air conditioner on, right? So how is it hotter up there than it is down there? It's because radiant heat from the attic is coming down because it couldn't go that way. So that's causing your air conditioner to run a lot more. You know, here's a funny story. I'm sure you've seen this happen before. It's a Friday. You're getting ready to take your wife on a little weekend vacation. You're back your car to the driveway, and the wife says, hey, did you remember to turn the air conditioner up 6 degrees? And you're like, oh, shoot. So you run in the house, and you think to yourself, well, I'm going to be a man and save us a bunch of money. I'm just going to turn it off. All right, so you turn the air conditioner off. You get home Sunday about 6 o'clock. You had a nice weekend. You walk in the door, poof, this hot air hits you. it's actually hotter in the house than it is outside. Because what happened is that insulation gave up and the air conditioner wasn't working it to help it. So now it's hotter inside your house than it is outside. That's the reason why most people, when they go to bed, I don't know about you, but when I go to bed, I actually turn my air conditioner down more. I keep it at 70 when I'm home, when I'm awake. When I go to bed, I put it down to 68. I like that cool side of the pillow. Hang that one leg out. I don't know if you folks do that. Okay. So we're talking about some problems here. Let me get into the solution to those problems. Okay. The solution to those problems is what you really need to do. Is you need to install, the very first thing you need to do is install a radiant barrier. Now that gets installed right here on the rafters. Okay? It gets installed right here. Now you want to go, when you install it, it gets installed 8 inches from the top of the roof and 8 inches from the soffit vents. The reason why it's radiant heat going in, okay, and then it's going to get blocked. So it's installed right there. We want that little 4 inches, because the rafter is about 4 inches. So we want it to get stopped in between that period right there, so it goes up the top of the roof, that heat, and it goes down here. You can't seal it, because if you seal it, it has nowhere to go. Now, when you first glance at this, it looks like tinfoil, right? If I did that with tinfoil and I opened up my hand, what would it look like?
A ball.
This is that stuff in Roswell. Remember that space saucer land? They couldn't get that. No, I'm just kidding you. This is not tinfoil. You can't tear this stuff. Okay? This was actually developed by NASA. NASA developed it for these spacesuits. Everything you take in outer space, it costs so much per pound to do it. So they had to make something lightweight. They had to make something durable. They had to make something that could protect the astronauts from plus 2,500 degrees and minus 2,500 degrees. And they had to be mobile, okay? This is equivalent to 7 feet of insulation, okay? It has an R rating of 184. For every 10 inches, your R rating would be 22. So 1 inch has a 2.2 R rating. R rating meaning resistance. Okay, 7 feet times 7 feet has 84 inches in it. So if you take 2.2, which is an R rating for every 1 inch, 184. Most people can do 7 feet of insulation in their attic. Now, could they have gone up there with the spacesuits and had 7 feet of insulation around their arms and legs? They couldn't have moved, okay? So, the next thing you want to do, because the number one problem in America is mold and mildew. Mold and mildew. And the reason why this has become a tremendous problem, a lot of people don't talk about it, is because most people are aware that they need to make their house energy efficient. So they're weather stripping, they're trying to keep things, tightened up. Well, what happens is if you seal that house, now you're going to cause mold and mildew, because just like I'm talking right now, you ever hear the saying, you're full of hot air? Okay, it's true. Whenever you talk, you're putting heat in the air. Heat has what? Moisture in it, okay? Every time you flush the toilet, you're putting you're putting moisture in the air. You run your dishwasher, you're putting moisture. You've seen your dishwasher before, you see that steam coming out of there. You're putting moisture. So you gotta have the heat stay out, but the moisture go out. Okay? So if you hold this to the light, you'll see those little tiny pinholes. Okay? That's giving it its breathability. Okay? So the radiant barrier is gonna stop that heat from ever entering, and then the moisture can get out. Okay? So that's the first thing we're gonna recommend. The next thing we're gonna recommend that you do is take this insulation and build it up to R38. Okay? That has a 97% reflectivity, by the way. Okay? So why do we need insulation if that's 97% reflectivity? Well, it's only about 3% more of the work. Why would you need to get insulation? Well, here's the reason why, Bob Murray. The radiant barrier in the summertime is going to work fantastic. Okay? Well, here's the only problem. What about the wintertime? If you only have 3 inches of insulation up here, it's going to work in the reverse, right? It's going to be 40 to 50 degrees outside, and you liked it at 68. Where's this heat going to try to go? Up. Okay? It's going to try to get up because it's colder up there. So if you've only got 3 inches of insulation up here, heat does rise. This kind of heat does rise. That's not radiant heat, that's convection heat. So what happens is heat sink's gonna go this way. You got 3 installations, it's gonna get right through to there. It's gonna be sitting right there in that attic. So if you build it up to R38, which is 17.4 inches, what's going to happen is it's still gonna go up, but that insulation is gonna be able to keep it from going completely out, and the radiant barrier is gonna push it back down. Matter of fact, I'm gonna do a demonstration here for you a second and show that to you. Okay? Then, the next thing we suggest you do is put it in an attic fan. Okay? And when I say an attic fan, a solar photovoltaic attic fan. Remember we talked about that? Now the reason why photovoltaic is gonna create electricity from the sun, okay? And solar, meaning it's not gonna cost you anything, it's solar, running on its own. Yeah, you can go get one that plugs in the wall, it's using electricity. The good thing about these, okay, is it's gonna take whatever temperature that the guy sets it at. You can set it at 85 degrees, you can set it at 90 degrees. So whatever temperature you set that thing at, it's gonna suck out of that attic. Literally, if you set it at 70 degrees, it would never stop. Because unless that attic was 70 degrees, it's gonna continue sucking out of there. The ideal temperature to set it at is 90, okay? So you wanna suck all that out. Now that attic fan is going to go in between, it's gonna suck in between the roof and the radiant barrier. It's gonna suck in this section. There's another part of it that comes down, it's gonna suck out of that section. So it's gonna suck all that hot air out of the attic. Now building your insulation up to 17.4 inches or R38 has another benefit for you. Now I don't know who the rocket scientist was that figured this out. Let's think about this. An air conditioner sits out of the house. Okay, whatever temperature you put your air conditioner at, it's going to blow out at 53 to 55 degrees. Okay, now 53 to 55 degrees, what's going to happen? It's going to take that temperature and it's going to go where? Through aluminum tubes. And aluminum is probably the greatest heat conductor. One of them, copper is the best. But I mean, you know, aluminum gets cold like that, gets hot like that, right? So they got aluminum tubes going through 150 degrees, and that's where we want to send temperatures that are 53 to 58. Oh, but it's wrapped with 1 inch worth of insulation. Okay, so by building that insulation up, it's also going to help protect those tubes. See, the whole purpose is get that attic as cool as possible, because what makes that air conditioner run is the heat coming down. Okay, do you folks have any other questions about that? Okay. Do you see the problem?
Yeah.
Do you see by putting those 3 products in, it would solve that solution? It would solve that problem?
Yeah.
Okay. What I'd like to do is take a minute and show you how the radiant barrier actually works. Now, for purpose of this training, I'm not going to go through this. I'm just going to explain to you what to do. You want to take your heat gun and you want to do it on the radiant barrier side first. Show them the temperature. It's always going to be 2 or 3 degrees hotter than it's inside their house right now. And then this represents the roof. Still taping, aren't you? Mm-hmm. Okay. These little pieces of wood right here are representing the rafters. So this is the bottom side of the roof inside the attic. This is the roof would have the shingle part on it. Y'all get that? Okay. So this is representing the radiant barrier. So you're going to tell the customer when you plug this, so before you plug it in, before you turn the switch on back here, you take the temperature. That'll prove to them the point you just tried to make here about the wintertime. Because this will actually be warmer than this side over here. Now, I tell the customers this lamp is 250 watts. You can either believe me or touch it and give me some of your DNA. Go ahead and plug it in, turn it on, and then every couple of minutes, a minute and a half, keep testing either side. And whatever the temperature is in the house, this thing won't change more than 2 or 3 degrees. Don't run it up past 160 degrees. Okay? If you run it up past that, you can actually catch the wood on fire. And the point that I like to do by that, by going up to 160 degrees, is because usually this side over here is probably about 80. So I'm showing 50%. I reduced their heat by 50%. Okay? And then once you show that, go ahead and turn it off. Okay? Now, you're going to come back to the book. So Bob and Mary, here's how radiant barrier works. These are the facts. In the mid-1950s, when Clark E. Beck refined as a technology for NASA the form of a thermal blanket, which is still used globally by emergency crews. I'm sure you've seen it before. Might be in the animals on the road, a person got hurt, they got them on a flat board or a gurney, they get that silver stuff over them. It's radiant barrier. They're trying to keep that heat of that body heat of that person inside them. Okay? Radiant barrier technology was introduced in the U.S. Space Agency Hall of Fame in 1996 and was considered top secret technology into the early 1980s. The U.S. Department of Energy says when a radiant barrier is correctly installed, it can reduce the heat gains through your ceiling by over 97%. Remember I was mentioning that to you? Okay. The Oak Ridge National Laboratory showed a 24% overall energy savings in the St. Louis, Missouri facility and a 26% energy savings at Topeka, Kansas location. The radiant barrier technology allows top fuel NHR racers to walk away from 2,500 plus degrees. Remember I was talking about the spacesuits? Minus 25, plus 25. Temperatures experienced during the high octane fuels. Now, I did tell you the story already about the ACs. Now these ones are hanging up. Obviously the insulation is not going to help much there, okay? But yours and your house were actually on the floor, so we're going to build that up to help you out. Okay, take a break.